Hello, welcome back to another YouTube exclusive 1v1 cast. Shout out once again to ApparentlyJack for leaving his auto upload on for his replays. And shout out to ballchasing.com. That's where I got these replays from. Now, we're going to be looking at 3 games that actually happened over a 3-month window. Well, I guess in a 2-month window. The first of these replays is from July. The second one is from August. And the third one is from September. So we're going to see a little window into this rivalry between FairJame and ApparentlyJack that pops up every now and again in Rocket League Ranked. Because although FairJame has stopped playing 1v1 competition, or at least he's retired from 1v1 competition, he says since Fusion, since he won Fusion, he does still play 1v1 Ranked, and he's always incredibly high rated, always top 10, and it's always a pleasure to watch him play. Now, these two did play in that same Fusion tournament, which FairJame went on to win for Arena Vitality. However, when they matched up, they played 3 games of a best of 7, and ApparentlyJack took 2 of them. FairJame took 1. That's when Vitality subbed in Alpha 54, who went on to win 3 of the next 4 games and win the series for Vitality. So, FairJame might be in a bit of trouble here, at least historically. But without any further ado, let's get into it. This is game number 1, FairJame versus ApparentlyJack from roughly 2 months ago. So quite recent. I don't expect to see too many changes or too many differences from the recent play. Obviously, FairJame is predominantly playing 3v3 competition in RLCS. So is ApparentlyJack, of course, although everybody in Europe has less success than FairJame and Vitality do, except BDS. But yeah, ApparentlyJack and his team are definitely in the conversation. They've still got a chance of making that major event. Oh, what a shot! That is a brilliant strike from ApparentlyJack. FairJame had the near post pretty well defended, but not the very top corner. Certainly not a shot at that power. Yeah, what I expect to see from this series, especially given the fact that this is well into ApparentlyJack being a known commodity in the 1v1 scene for Rocket League, and indeed just a well-known commodity in the Rocket League competitive scene, I expect to see FairJame giving Jack a lot of respect, and of course we expect the same from Jack to Fairy. That's not the best near post defense. Earlier on I think FairJame had most of the goal covered. There he definitely did not the best spacing in that play. Jack actually going to bump FairJame after on his rotation back and gets the back corner boost as well. So this is a great start for Jack. Immediately crosses over to try and wrong foot FairJame again. This time FairJame positions better, still can't get the save though. And I think that one there should have probably been saved. The first shot, fair enough. Jack just smashed it top corner. Not much you could do about that. Second one, FairJame, got himself in trouble positionally. Oh, he's still going to fly up for this. Jack didn't see that one coming. Really nicely done there by Fairy. Stayed right underneath the ball, and although his car was really fighting to stay airborne, he managed to get the touch before Jack could get up in the air and block him for it. Jack thinking about a near post rebound. FairJame's too fast though. Removes the opportunity before it can really be possible. Double touch for Fairy. Jack is not going up for this, and he's not going to be the favorite to save that reactively. He actually got a touch. FairJame put it pretty close to him, but Jack still could not get the ball out to the net. I think in those positions you have to kind of just go for the rebound. It's not like a flip reset play where the opponent is coming in slowly and sometimes fluffs the shot. These rebound attempts, especially from someone who's as used to doing that in 3v3 and in 2v2 as FairJame is, a player who's got such a strong aerial game, you need to challenge him. Brilliant off the wall pre-flip by Fairy. He's got the lead by 1 now. Jack unable to keep up with FairJame's counterattacks. Interesting to see how much control FairJame is able to exert on this game. Now, if this is a July game, this is of course in the time frame where Jack was trying to fight Khaled for that rank 1 title. So he would probably be the favorite in this sort of time period. Maybe he would be the favorite in any month that these two play recently. Because he does put more time into 1v1 ranked, or at least he did. I don't know if he is right now. It's a beautiful approach by Jack. Really nicely done. Dissects FairJame's near post defense, and he's back in it. Couple of strong kickoffs. Great conversions. Really, both players have been applying tons of pressure with their offensive plays. FairJame's going to go for this. It's not unusual to see him confident in his wall shooting ability, but that one was a tough one. FairJame couldn't get the power shot off. Jack slots it in on the counter. I mean, FairJame knew when he jumped off that wall that if he missed, it was probably going to be a goal for Jack. And that was a risk that he was willing to take. I think it was a shot he scores most of the time, in fairness to him. Oh, now that was interesting. So Jack this time did pre-jump Fairy's rebound. Learning from his mistake earlier in the game. But FairJame missed it. Now actually way out of the game. Oh my goodness, FairJame forfeits at 6-4. And we have to see this from Fairy's perspective at the end of the game. I've not watched these games, guys. I did not know that early forfeit was coming. FairJame boost starved. Does get the mid boost. Wow. He must have just not been feeling it. That's a really early forfeit by Fairy. I mean, yeah, Jack seemed to be scoring with relative ease, but so did FairJame. Neither of these players were really able to establish their defense in the matchup. So, wow. Jack just really surprising FairJame there. Maybe getting a bit too many goals in a row at the end there. And got FairJame to leave the lobby. I don't know what the reason is for that one, of course. Maybe FairJame was late for a scrim. Maybe he was thanking somebody for gifting a ton of subs to his stream. I'm not sure. But yeah, maybe he just didn't think he could come back against Jack in that game. So, July, Jack beats FairJame. Let's get into August and see if he can replicate. I'm going to remember to turn on the game sound, or you guys will rightfully complain at me. Same cars, even though almost a month between these games. Still Octane and still Fennec. Oh wow, Jack's missed the back wall shot. Now, it was a tricky one, but it's still something that I'd expect him to be putting on target, and that is also something I'd expect to be on target. Nice recovery by Fairy, also bumping Jack on the turn. But the accuracy already in this game is way worse than it was in the previous one. That's a beautiful catch though by Fairy. You'll notice that he accelerated the ball way more than Jack was expecting on that landing. That was really the key to scoring that play. All about the burst of speed. My goodness, that is a high flick. In fact, too high. Jack gets bumped out of the way while waiting for the ball to come to him. FairJame trips him up twice, and he's in the lead by 2. That's a pretty tilting goal. Beautiful connection on the flick from Jack, but sometimes you end up catching the ball too cleanly and it just goes way too far away from you. It's about as good as Jack could have defended this play. Honestly, quite well done, even though he's under immense pressure still. Very good defense from Jack. He's had no boost ever since the kickoff, but he's staying goal side of the ball every time FairJame tries to shoot. I don't think Jack's going to get back corner boost control though. No, he's not, and FairJame just leaves it for him. Takes the ball into the middle. One step ahead in that play. That was genius. FairJame realized that Jack was getting frustrated with the boost starvation situation. He tried to beat Fairy to the corner. Oh, now Fairy's just barreling right through. 4-0. What a game for FairJame. In every game that we see him play, he just has a way of... He's one of those players who will always have pressure on his opponent. And I think that is really, for me, the one thing that made FairJame such a legendary 1v1 player. The one thing above all else, above the rest of his qualities, that made him difficult to play against. Awkward save there for Fairy, but I think he's done enough here. Jack was actually a bit too aggressively positioned to try and catch him and trip him up on that landing. Jack actually half flipping away from that challenge. Look at that, it's worked out. Not the conventional technique in that 50-50. Most players, when they're trying to absorb that challenge, will want to face the ball so that if they do win, they can run it into the open net. But Jack's showing that you can actually half flip away from it and still get the fast turn and beat your opponent if they are boost starved. Once again, Jack going to cross over to the far side of the field. It's pretty good air dribble defense though by FairJame. Opting to drive into his goal afterwards as well. Avoids the bump on the landing. And now Jack is awkwardly placed. FairJame puts it over him. And he will continue to shoot as early as possible in every play The killer instinct is very much there for Fairy Peak. Jack trying for the half-flip kickoff. He'll barely get the save. No, he has to try and mix things up if he feels he's losing kickoffs. That's a pretty risky one. It's not even a fake kickoff. It's a blatant, I'm not going for the ball kickoff. Feel free to take a shot kind of play. Speedy Jack will put a second goal in though. Make sure to get out of the way of it so he doesn't save it on the way into the goal. And unlike Fairy Peak in the last game, I seriously doubt that Jack would forfeit with a 3-goal disadvantage. I think he cares more about his rank points than Fairy Peak does. That's, you know, both. I'm not you know, throwing shade at Fairy at all. It to me is pretty crazy that he can be top 10 in the 1v1 leaderboard without caring in the slightest about what his rank is. He just accidentally ranks up to the very highest rank in the game mode. I think in 2v2 as well, Fairy Peak also just intentionally went on a losing streak with Alpha 54 because they were so sick of waiting for 20 minutes between games when they would play together, because I think they were rank 1, rank 2, or maybe like at the same time in the top 3 or something like that. So they just downranked their accounts so they could actually get games. Now, I don't really agree with that. I don't think that that's the solution to not being able to get a game. But it is something that just to remember about Fairy Peak. He doesn't really care about his rank points. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, you know, if Fairy Peak can get this high rated when he doesn't care, imagine how high rated he could get when he does care. But in some ways, I think the fact that he doesn't really care about his rank points helps him to rank up, because there's really no pressure on him. He isn't putting pressure on himself. It's ranked, it's not competition, so there's no pressure just by virtue of that fact. But it's probably the best advice, or some of the best advice you can get for ranking up in Rocket League, in probably any game mode, any game competitively. Just try not to care, because the less you care, the more you can think about actually improving, the more you can think about just playing the game well, and less about the artificial number that's assigned to you to tell you how good of a player you are. There is definitely more to it than that. I'm not saying that if you stop caring about your rank points, you're going to become Fairy Peak overnight. Oh, Jack had a reset off that ball, but Fairy Peak was goal side of it. Jack has tried to bump Fairy Peak out of position a few times at the end of this game, but Fairy Peak is pretty safe behind the ball most of the time. He isn't too scared of getting bumped if he knows Jack doesn't have supersonic speed to demo him with. And the key there is not to panic, not to jump when you see your opponent driving up to you slowly, because if you jump into the air when your opponent is driving up to you really slowly and then they bump you, you go flying. You go way, way further away from the play than if you just sat on the ground, wait for them to bump you, and then use your dodge to recover out of that bump, whether it's a half flip or any other type of recovery. It started off with just Killer Instinct Fairy Peak, and then it's been Nerves of Steel Fairy Peak, just not making any mistakes. That's a nice finish actually for 7-3, and this game is over. It has been for a while. Fairy Peak taking the September edition of, or sorry, the August edition of himself versus apparently Jack rank. Jack trying to go for the own goal at the end here, does not get it. Well, there you have it. A pretty brutal start to the game for Fairy Peak. Jack began to come back, and, you know, credit to him. He stuck in there even though he was down 5-1. But Fairy Peak slowed down a little bit, played a bit more defensive, let the clock do the work for him, and gets the win. Okay, we have one more game, so I'm going to go ahead and load that one up for you guys. And like I said before, this is the September ranked match. I'm not cherry picking, by the way. These were the only 3 matches that I could find for Fairy Peak versus ApparentlyJack on the database. So it just so happened to be that they were 1 month apart. Okay, let's get into the September edition of Fairy Peak versus ApparentlyJack. Double Fennec this time. Jack, mostly an Octane player, mostly known to be an Octane player. I believe in 3v3 as well as in 1v1. Slow air dribble for Jack. Fairy Peak's not falling for it, but maybe a bump happening. Yes, a nice pit maneuver there by Jack. He just tapped Fairy Peak from behind. And he is just playing for the boost advantage here, waiting for Fairy Peak to either give him space or make a mistake. Fairy Peak opts for the former. Another slow air dribble by Jack. This time Fairy Peak won't wait for the bounce. He does challenge right as the bounce is happening. More slow air dribbling by Jack. Fairy Peak is pretty good at defending against these. He isn't really one to pre-jump unnecessarily in 1v1. And he'll not waste any time demoing Jack when he gets a chance to attack him. 1-0 Fairy. Bit too much nonsense from Jack there in offense, maybe. I think a more direct approach would help him. Very nice control by Fairy Peak. He's missed the boost steal though. Oh, and he misses the ball as well. Went back for the boost steal. And I think Jack's got this one. He will punish Fairy Peak for a couple of mistakes. Firstly, Fairy Peak misses the boost. And then he tried to go back for it while getting a glancing blow on the ball. Fairy Peak realized last second here that Jack was faking the kickoff. Sneaks it past him. I think it's too far away. Pull shot clear for ApparentlyJack. He's quite lucky not to be down by 2 here. Fairy Peak was in an extremely good position, but what is it with these slow air dribbles by Jack? All of them extremely ineffective, and not for the first time this game. Fairy Peak able to successfully counter-attack him. I'm not a fan of the slow air dribbles. Now, if Jack is going to air dribble these short distance, slow motion flight paths, I think getting a flip reset is key, and now you will actually go for one. I promise you I've not watched this replay. That was just a very fortunate moment there, I guess. Oh, nice save by Jack. Fairy Peak taking a bit too long with the open net. Could have easily been another counter-attack goal there. It's another unsuccessful air dribble. This time Jack will skip over Fairy Peak's demo and walks in the ball quite cleanly. And that was brilliant awareness. Fairy Peak wanted to surprise Jack, coming in from the side. Jack's a very good player for keeping an eye on where his opponent is coming from. You can see the clash of styles now. Fairy Peak with no nonsense power shots. Jack slow playing, air dribbling every single time he can. And like I said before, he's got to land those resets. Fairy Peak cuts him off and scores another goal. Jack was expecting the mid boost to be the point of contention, but the ball was obviously far more important in that play. And where he was very good at keeping an eye on Fairy Peak's bump approach, he didn't keep an eye on Fairy Peak's possession play there. Nice bump onto Fairy though to tie up the game. Very close here in the decider. Like I said earlier, I'm not cherry picking these games. These are the only 3 games I could find in recent months between these two in the database. Just so happened that they were pretty much 1 month apart from each other. Jack barely covering the far post in that play. Oh wow, he's somehow got a breakaway and I think a goal. Squashes it in off the near post. Fairy Peak didn't see that one coming. Had the boost advantage, had the ball pretty close to him, and as a result had a bit of a false sense of security. Can't underestimate Jack's ability to accelerate even when he doesn't have a lot of boost available to him. Exceptional wave dashing player. 4-4 though. Fairy Peak with a strong kickoff response. And no doubt this is the closest game out of all 3 that we saw. First game, Jack, didn't run away with it entirely, but he did get a big enough lead to, inspire Fairy Peak to forfeit early. Second game, Fairy Peak had I think a 4-goal advantage for quite a while early on into the game. But the Fennec mirror has proved to be the most close. But it's very interesting to note that the Fennec is, I don't know if it is a Fennec or if it's just a playstyle choice that Jack has made, but he is playing a much more slow and controlled variation here. That was risky. Fairy Peak had quite a lot of the goal to aim for there. I think he might have passed to Jack in this play. Jack goes for the demo and has the open net afterwards. And I can't really fault him for that play. That was safe. Didn't want to risk getting bumped by Fairy while sneaking a shot past him. Didn't want to risk going for a 50-50 that would just bounce harmlessly into the back corner. And another fake kickoff was actually turned out to be a huge success for Jack. This is a big win. When you're in the final minute of a match almost. Oh dear, he's half flipped past the ball though. Luckily for him, Fairy Peak wasn't paying attention. And again, Jack's acceleration catches Fairy Peak napping. Very interested to see that whenever Jack has attacked Fairy Peak in this game, if Fairy Peak's between him and the goal, he'll go very, very slow, controlled, very methodical. Whenever Fairy Peak is pressuring the ball. Jack looks for the immediate counterattack. He's not in a very good position here, though. Somehow gets the save anyway. And I wonder, did Jack bait that shot? Was he trying to look awkwardly positioned, even though he had full control? He still does have control of this position. Oh dear, though. I think Jack might have ran away too far. And Fairy Peak has walked in another goal, where I think maybe Jack was too afraid of the demo, or at least more afraid than he should have been. Fairy Peak was not moving supersonic, and I don't think he had any way to get supersonic in that play. He definitely has a way to equalize here, though. Jack comes high into the challenge. Fairy Peak actually leaves it for him. Oh, and that's just going to be another leave for Fairy. Wow, what is going on here? You know, I didn't look at the timestamps of these games before showing them to you guys, so I'm just as confused as you guys are, but I've made sure to show you guys the bottom scoreboard, or the timeline of events in these replays, every single one of them, so you see that Fairy Peak did in fact leave the game here. Okay, we need to we need to get our best detectives in the comment section to try and figure out what happens here. Why did Fairy Peak decide to leave now of all times? Look at this. Jack ball chases a challenge. I don't think Fairy Peak's tilted by that. I mean, Jack went for a 360 wave dash into a ball chase challenge, and Fairy Peak just turned around and left it. And then he drives into his back corner, gets the boost, and forfeits. Or at least I think he did. I'm so confused. I am so confused. In fact, I'm just going to double check for you guys that that is in fact what happened. Did Jack forfeit this game? Because sometimes at the end of a game here, I have, you know, some pro players, some high-level players have been known to just forfeit for no reason. Okay, Jack didn't forfeit from a winning position here. He did get credited the win in the replay. Oh, I think I could have actually just checked the name. Yeah, ApparentlyJack ranked duel win. So it was win, loss, win. No forfeits from winning positions to donate points to the other player. Oh, well, your guys' guess is as good as mine. Maybe we can ask Fairy Peak. Hey, what were you doing on the 2nd of September at 39 minutes past 4? At least I think that's what this number notation stands for. But anyway, that threw me off a little bit. But regardless, this is a really interesting little series of games for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Jack versus Fairy Peak isn't the same kind of matchup anymore that it was in Fusion. In Fusion, Jack really just took Fairy by surprise. He just stormed from the get-go and played at a faster pace than Fairy was ready for. Since then, I think Jack has been experimenting with different playstyles, especially in this last game. He was extremely careful. He was extremely methodical with his offense when Fairy Peak was shadowing. And that's something I'm not used to seeing from Jack. He tends to go fast at his opponents, right? Build up speed and just power the ball over the top of them, much like he did in game 1 of this little mini-series here. But Fairy Peak, same Fairy Peak as always, pretty much. He is decisive. He is calm whenever he's not forfeiting early, which both of the games here that Fairy Peak lost were early forfeits. This one, just as strange as the last one, and absolutely winnable. Both of them are absolutely winnable games. But yeah, it could be something as simple as Fairy Peak having other stuff that he has to go do. Maybe he's so maybe somebody said that they'd donate him €100 if he forfeits the game right now, and he's like, sure, €100, let's go for it. I don't need these rank points. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today, guys. I really appreciate you all swinging by and watching these videos. Live 1v1 show matches will be making a return. Do not worry that we have big plans for live 1v1 show matches for Salt Mine. I've just been having a ton of fun looking through the archives, looking through the database, and looking for matches that might be interesting to watch. And you know, again, shout out to ApparentlyJack for being the provider for the majority of them, because he does auto-upload his ranked games. Now, if you guys want to go and look at any of those yourself, remember to head to ballchasing.com. The user interface is extremely easy to use. You don't need me to show you how to do it or to explain how to do it. And yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to find plenty of games on there that you can enjoy, and you can upload your own games and get additional stats on them that don't get shown in the base Rocket League game, post-game stats. But yeah, maybe next time we'll see some Mark gameplay. I'm going to be on the lookout for some high-level Mark 1v1 ranked games. If I can find any, I'll definitely show them to you guys. Been loving the new Mark recently. Hopefully you guys have as well. But for now, that is all we have time for. I'll be back very soon with more live 1v1 content, more grid streams, and just more of the usual stuff as well. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.